The cafe was small, the kind of place that felt tucked away from the world. Dim lights hung low from the ceiling, casting soft shadows on the worn-out tables. The quiet hum of a few conversations blended with the faint sounds of old country music playing in the background. In the corner, a young woman sat with her guitar, her fingers strumming the strings with a raw, desperate energy. Her voice was soft but filled with emotion, as if every note held a piece of her heart. Her name was Emily, and she was trying to make a name for herself in a town that didn't seem to care. The few people scattered around the cafe barely noticed her performance. They were too busy talking, eating, or checking their phones. It was just another night, just another gig. Emily's eyes were tired. She'd been singing for hours, but the crowd wasn't reacting. She'd hoped for something different, maybe a break, maybe a moment of recognition, but all she got was silence. Her fingers ached from playing the same old songs over and over. This wasn't how she imagined it would be. She thought that when she moved to this small town, her big break would come quickly. But days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Now, she was just scraping by. The rent was due, and she could barely make enough to pay for her next meal. She wanted to believe in her dream, but reality was starting to crush her spirit. She looked down at her guitar, her heart sinking. Maybe it was time to quit. Maybe it was time to go back home, admit defeat, and forget about the music. But as she played the last chord, a quiet movement at the door caught her eye. Someone had walked in. She didn't think much of it at first, but then she saw the figure, a woman in a hat and sunglasses, sitting at a table, watching her. Emily kept playing, trying to focus on the music. But something about the woman in the corner was drawing her attention. She hadn't noticed her at first. The cafe was dark, and the lights above her guitar cast a soft glow, blurring the faces in the crowd. But now, the woman was hard to miss. She was sitting alone, her head tilted slightly, listening intently. Her hat was large, her sunglasses covering most of her face, but something about her presence felt familiar. Emily's heart skipped a beat. The woman's stillness, the way she seemed to be studying her with such care, it felt like more than just a casual listener. Was it possible? Was this some kind of sign? A quiet voice beside Emily made her jump. "That's Dolly Parton," the cafe owner whispered, leaning in from behind the counter. Emily's fingers froze on the strings, but she quickly recovered, pushing the thought out of her head. Dolly Parton. The Dolly Parton. She glanced over again, but the woman in the corner was still just watching, her expression unreadable. Emily couldn't be sure. It couldn't be. Why would a legend like Dolly Parton be sitting in this small forgotten cafe in the middle of nowhere? The room seemed to hold its breath. Emily's thoughts were racing. Was she imagining this? Was her mind playing tricks on her, hoping for a miracle? But Dolly Parton, of all people. The idea seemed impossible. She kept playing, trying to ignore the growing feeling that something big was about to happen, that her life was about to change. She couldn't stop looking over at the woman. Dolly Parton, it just didn't make sense. And yet she couldn't help but wonder. As Emily played the last notes of her song, she looked down, unsure of what to do next. The silence in the cafe felt heavier than before. Was anyone even listening? Her heart was pounding, and she was about to pack up, ready to call it a night. But then something unexpected happened. She felt a gentle tap on her shoulder. Emily turned around quickly. And there, standing before her, was the woman from the corner, the one in the sunglasses and hat. She was smiling, a warm, welcoming smile, one that made Emily's nervousness melt away. "You've got a real gift, honey," the woman said, her voice soft and full of kindness. Emily's mouth went dry. Her heart skipped a beat. This was Dolly Parton, the Dolly Parton, the country music legend who had touched millions of lives with her songs, her voice, her heart. Emily couldn't believe it. "Are you?" she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Dolly nodded, still smiling. "I sure am, and I couldn't help but hear your voice. You've got something special, sweetheart. What's your name?" "Emily," she said, still in shock. "I never thought I'd meet you. I'm just trying to make it, you know." Dolly's eyes softened as she pulled up a chair and sat down next to her. "I know exactly how you feel. I wasn't always this big, you know. I started just like you, playing in small cafes, singing my heart out. It's tough, but you've gotta keep going. Emily stared at Dolly, unable to believe what she was hearing. I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this. It feels like I'm running in place, nothing's happening. I don't have the connections, the money, or even the right songs. I just don't know if I can make it. Dolly listened carefully, nodding with understanding. I've been there, honey. I've been broke, rejected, and lost. But I kept going. You don't need all the answers right now. You just need to keep singing, keep dreaming. And when the right moment comes, you'll know it. Trust me. Emily felt her eyes well up with tears. This wasn't just a conversation, this was hope. Dolly wasn't just offering words, she was offering a piece of herself, an invitation to believe. Dolly leaned in closer. Tell you what, Emily. I know a guy in Nashville, a producer. I'll give you his contact. You call him, and tell him I sent you. He'll take you seriously. Emily's mouth went dry. You would do that for me? Dolly smiled again, a sparkle in her eye. Of course. I see something in you, honey. Don't let fear stop you. Take a chance. Dolly reached into her bag and pulled out a small card. It was simple, but the weight of it felt like a life-changing moment. She handed it to Emily with a soft smile. This is his number, Dolly said. Call him, tell him Dolly sent you. Emily stared at the card, almost afraid to touch it. Was this really happening? Dolly Parton, was handing her the key to her dreams. It felt unreal. Her hands were shaking as she took the card, her mind racing with doubt. Why would Dolly help her? Why would someone like her, with everything she had already accomplished, care about a struggling singer in a tiny cafe? But Dolly wasn't done. She leaned forward, her voice calm but firm. Don't second-guess yourself. If you don't try, you'll never know. Take a chance, Emily. I see a little bit of myself in you. I know what it's like to feel like you're standing on the edge, wondering if you should jump, but sometimes, you have to take that leap. The worst thing that can happen is you learn something new. Emily felt a lump form in her throat. She wanted to say something, to thank Dolly, but the words wouldn't come. This wasn't just advice, it was a lifeline. This was a chance she'd never imagined would come her way. She swallowed hard. But what if it doesn't work? What if I mess it up? Dolly's smile softened. What if it does work, Emily? What if this is your moment? You can't live in the what-ifs. You have to take the first step. You've got the talent, now you just need a little push. I'm giving you that. It's up to you to take it. Emily nodded slowly, her mind still reeling. Dolly had given her more than just a number, she had given her hope. A hope that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as far from her dreams as she thought. Thank you. Emily whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. Dolly winked and stood up. You don't need to thank me, darling. You just need to believe in yourself. Now go make that call. The next morning, Emily woke up with the card still in her hand, clutched tightly against her chest. She stared at it for a long time, the number written on it seeming to glow, a tiny but powerful promise of something more. But fear crept in, as it always did when she faced a big decision. What if it wasn't real? What if Dolly had just been being kind, and the producer didn't take her seriously? What if she made a fool of herself, calling and asking for a chance she didn't deserve? Her heart pounded in her chest, as doubt began to cloud her thoughts. But then she remembered Dolly's words. What if it does work? What if this is your moment? Taking a deep breath, Emily grabbed her phone. She stared at the number on the card for a moment, her fingers hovering over the screen. Then, without thinking, she dialed. The phone rang twice before someone answered. This is Ryan, the voice on the other end said. His tone was calm, professional. Who is this? Emily's voice wavered, but she pushed through the nerves. Hi. My name is Emily. Dolly Parton, she gave me your number. There was a brief pause, and Emily's heart stopped in her chest. She half expected him to laugh, to tell her it was a joke, to hang up on her. But then Ryan spoke again, his voice much warmer than before. Dolly sent you. Well, that's enough for me. What can I do for you, Emily? Her breath caught in her throat. She wasn't sure how to respond at first. Was she supposed to say something impressive? Was she supposed to sing? Instead, she found herself blurting out the truth. I'm just a girl with a dream. I'm trying to make it in music, and I'm not sure how much longer I can keep going. Dolly said I should call you, that you might listen. I'm just hoping for a chance, just one chance to be heard. There was a moment of silence. Emily held her breath, waiting for him to say no, to turn her down. I'll tell you what, Ryan said finally, his tone soft but firm. Why don't you come to Nashville tomorrow? We'll see what you've got. Emily couldn't believe it. Her heart leaped in her chest. It was happening. This was real, the chance she'd been waiting for, the one that had seemed so far out of reach, was finally within her grasp. Tomorrow? She whispered, her voice barely audible. Yep. Pack your bags, Emily. I'll see you soon. The next day, Emily found herself standing in the heart of Nashville, her heart pounding with excitement and fear. She had never been to the city before. The bright lights, the tall buildings, the sound of music filling the air, it was everything she had dreamed of. But it also felt overwhelming. Everything was bigger here, and so was the pressure. She stood outside the recording studio, her palms sweaty, staring up at the glass doors. A wave of doubt washed over her. Was she really ready for this? Could she pull it off? What if she wasn't good enough? What if when she walked through those doors, they realized she was just another small-town dreamer, who didn't belong here? But then she remembered Dolly's words. You've got the talent, now you just need a little push. Taking a deep breath, Emily stepped forward, and pushed the door open. The studio was more beautiful than she had imagined, sleek, modern, with walls lined with platinum records. The producer, Ryan, was waiting for her, a kind smile on his face. He didn't look at her with skepticism or doubt, he looked at her like she was exactly where she needed to be. Welcome to Nashville, Emily, he said, his voice warm. Ready to see what you've got? Emily nodded, swallowing her nerves. She followed him into a recording room, the familiar sight of microphones and sound equipment, making her feel both at home and out of place. Ryan gestured to a microphone. Go ahead, sing something for me. Show me who you are. Her hands shook as she picked up the guitar, but she forced herself to stay calm. She strummed the first chord, then another, and another. Her voice, though shaky at first, grew steadier with every note. It was like something inside her clicked. She wasn't just singing for a crowd, or for anyone else. She was singing for herself, finally truly believing in her own voice. When she finished, there was a long silence. Her heart raced. She couldn't read Ryan's face. Was it good? Was it bad? Then slowly, he began to clap. You've got something special, Emily, Ryan said, a smile breaking across his face. You've got a sound that's going to turn some heads. Emily couldn't believe it. For the first time in months, she felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. The nerves that had once threatened to hold her back were gone. This was her moment. She had taken the leap, and it was paying off. Emily couldn't stop smiling as she left the studio that day. The hours she had spent with Ryan seemed like a blur, a whirlwind of excitement, nerves and disbelief. But one thing was crystal clear, her life had just changed. After she had sung for Ryan, he'd talked to her about a recording deal. It wasn't a guarantee of fame or fortune, but it was a real chance, a chance to take her music further than she had ever dreamed. He had introduced her to the team, told her they wanted to work with her. They could help her refine her sound, introduce her to new opportunities, and start making her mark in the music world. It wasn't everything, but it was enough. The next few days were a blur of meetings, brainstorming sessions, and recording demos. Emily had never worked so hard, but for the first time, it felt like it was worth it. She was surrounded by people who believed in her, who saw something in her she had barely dared to believe in herself. And all of this had started with a moment, a simple moment in a small-town cafe, where a stranger had taken the time to listen, to believe, to offer a helping hand. Dolly Parton hadn't just given her a chance. She had given her hope. Emily's phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from her mom. "Are you okay, sweetie? We've been praying for you. I hope this is the beginning of something amazing." Emily smiled as she typed her reply. "It is, Mom. It really is." She glanced out the window at the bright Nashville skyline, the city full of dreams, just waiting for someone to take that first step. She had taken hers. Now it was up to her to keep walking. As the days passed, Emily's confidence grew. She found herself writing more music, experimenting with new sounds, pushing herself in ways she hadn't before. It wasn't always easy, but with each new song, each new recording session, she felt a little closer to the person she had always wanted to be. The person she knew she could be. And all the while, she thought about Dolly. About the kindness and belief she had been shown when she needed it most. Dolly wasn't just a star, she was a guide, a mentor, someone who had passed the torch. Emily was ready to carry it forward.